Most people believe that increasing their salary is the most reliable way to build wealth. But statistically, a high income is often the exact thing that keeps people financially trapped. We are taught to view the steady paycheck as the ultimate financial safety net. Yet, from a purely mathematical standpoint, relying solely on a salary is the slowest and most restrictive path to financial freedom. On paper, trading your skills for a predictable income seems like the smartest move you can make. But there is a hidden structural flaw in this arrangement. It's a flaw that explains why a household earning six figures can still end up living paycheck to paycheck, completely dependent on the next deposit. The salary trap is not an accident. It is a highly efficient economic arrangement designed to trade your most finite resource, time, for just enough capital to keep you returning the next day. When you accept a salary, you are making a very specific trade. You are trading the unlimited potential of what you can build for the immediate comfort of what you can consume. We often call this job security, but this phrasing is intentionally misleading. Job security creates a false sense of comfort because it feels like a guarantee. However, true security comes from controlling your income sources, not from hoping a single employer continues to need your services. When 100% of your income comes from one company, you don't have security. You have a single point of failure. Here is where this becomes important. The system is perfectly engineered to keep you comfortable enough that you don't want to leave, but dependent enough that you can't afford to. We'll look at exactly how this happens with your annual raise in just a moment, but first, we need to understand the structural limit of your paycheck. The primary reason a salary limits your wealth is that it forces you to trade time for money. There are only 24 hours in a day, even if you are a highly paid professional, a doctor, a lawyer, a senior director, your earning potential is strictly capped by your physical availability. Think of a traditional salary, like a municipal water pipe. It doesn't matter how much water is in the reservoir, the output is structurally limited by the diameter of the pipe. You can upgrade to a slightly wider pipe by getting a promotion, but there is still a hard physical limit to how much flow can pass through. Wealth, on the other hand, is about building a system that collects rain from 1,000 different roofs simultaneously. When you work for a salary, your employer's goal is to pay you less than the value you generate. If you generate $200,000 of value for a company, they might pay you $80,000. That $120,000 gap is the company's profit. This isn't inherently evil, it is simply the mechanics of business. But it means that, by definition, as an employee, you are consistently being paid less than the economic value of your output. But here's the part most people don't realize. The financial friction of a salary goes beyond just the time for money exchange. It also triggers a specific set of psychological traps. Why do intelligent, capable people stay in a system that mathematically limits them? It comes down to psychological conditioning. From a young age, we are trained to operate on short-term reward cycles. You do the homework, you get the grade. You put in the 2 weeks of work, you get the direct deposit. The biweekly paycheck provides a highly predictable hit of dopamine. It lowers our immediate anxiety about survival. Over time, we become addicted to this predictability, the fear of losing the known. Even if the known is keeping us financially stagnant, overrides the logic of building something independent. Corporate environments amplify this by gamifying your career. They offer new titles, employee recognition programs, and nominal yearly raises. These things create the illusion of forward momentum. You feel like you are progressing because your title changed from manager to senior manager, but your actual wealth, your ability to survive without trading your time, hasn't changed at all. To truly understand why this matters, we need to look at the numbers. Let's look at a common scenario to see how the system slowly drains your earning power. Consider a 30-year-old making $72,000 a year. After a strong performance review, they receive an 8% raise, bringing their new salary to $77,760. On the surface, this feels like a major victory. But let's apply the hidden variables most beginners ignore: inflation, taxes, and lifestyle creep. First, earned income from a salary is the highest taxed form of wealth. Let's assume a 25% marginal tax rate on that new money. That $5,760 raise is immediately reduced to $4,320 in actual take-home pay. Next, we factor in inflation. If the cost of living has increased by a modest 3% over the year, the purchasing power of their entire baseline salary has dropped. But the most dangerous element is the psychological trap of the new normal. With a higher title comes an unconscious upgrade in lifestyle. Because they are working harder, they feel they deserve a reward. They move to an apartment that costs $200 more per month. They start ordering takeout more frequently because they have less free time. If their living expenses increase by just 6% alongside their promotion, the actual wealth-building gap, the surplus money left over at the end of the month to buy assets, has barely moved. In fact, their baseline operating costs have now permanently expanded. They are making more money, but their reliance on the next paycheck has actually intensified. They have climbed higher on the ladder, but the ladder is resting on the exact same fragile foundation. The interesting part happens when you extend the timeline and compare two different approaches to managing a career. Let's look at a 14-year window. Person A completely buys into the salary trap. They start at a base of $60,000 and spend 14 years hustling for every promotion. By the end of the timeline, they've achieved a highly respected role, making $140,000. But to secure and maintain that income, they're regularly working 55 hours a week. More importantly, their lifestyle has perfectly scaled with their income. They have a more expensive car, a larger mortgage, and higher baseline expenses. Their wealth is entirely active. If the job disappears tomorrow, their wealth generation instantly drops to zero and their expensive lifestyle becomes a massive liability. Person B takes a different route. They also start at $60,000, but they understand that their salary is merely a tool, not the end goal. Instead of chasing the highest possible active income at the cost of their time, they intentionally cap their lifestyle. They navigate their career into a $95,000 role that requires a strict, manageable 40 hours a week. They use the surplus money from capping their lifestyle and the surplus time from capping their hours to acquire passive assets. They consistently direct 20% of their income into broad market index funds. 14 years later, Person A has a much more impressive title and higher active cash flow. But Person B has fundamentally decoupled their survival from their employer. The assets Person B accumulated over those 14 years now generate a baseline return that covers their basic living expenses. If both people are suddenly laid off, the results are completely different. Person A faces an immediate financial crisis. Person B views the layoff as an inconvenience, not an emergency. Person A has a high income. Person B has actual wealth. So how do you practically escape this cycle? The goal is not necessarily to quit your job tomorrow or abandon your career. The goal is to change the function of your salary. Right now, if you are caught in the trap, you are using your salary to buy a lifestyle. To break free, you must use your salary to buy assets. You have to mentally demote your employer. Your job is no longer your identity or your primary focus. Your job is simply the initial funding mechanism for your actual business, and your actual business is your investment portfolio. You must break the psychological link between earning more and spending more. When you receive a raise, that money should bypass your checking account entirely. It should be automatically routed toward buying back your future time. The system is designed to keep you comfortable, busy, and dependent. A salary provides the necessary illusion of security while capping your true earning potential and demanding your most valuable asset in return. Breaking out of this trap requires recognizing that a high income does not automatically equal wealth, especially if that income requires your constant, active participation. Real financial freedom requires a shift in how you measure success. It's not about how much you make in a year. It's about how long you can sustain your life without trading hours for capital. Escaping the salary trap takes time. It requires discipline when your peers are upgrading their lifestyles, and it requires a long-term perspective when short-term rewards are constantly placed in front of you. Wealth building is a slow, methodical process of transferring your reliance from your own labor to the labor of your assets. Keep refining your understanding of how money flows, stay consistent with your strategy, and focus on building systems that pay you regardless of whether you clock in. Would you like me to outline a specific framework for redirecting your next pay raise directly into income-producing assets?